I call the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, the government touted this as a zero budget and they were right. This is a zero budget because it is a 0 out of 10. It has got zero ideas, zero leadership and zero chance of making New Zealanders better off either in the short term or the longer term. Now this taxation bill contains with it some of the worst parts of this budget, and it is a great pleasure that we will be addressing it in the House in this urgency motion right up front, and I thank the government for the opportunity to do so. But there is absolutely no doubt that the foundation upon which this bill rests is precarious. It's precarious because this budget is a bridge to nowhere, and the road there is paved with fudges and double talk. It is paved, for example, by a broken promise not to sell SOEs and other assets, which provides $7 billion of the baseline in this budget. It is paved with a $1 billion unprecedented fudge that Roger Douglas would never have signed off on as Minister of Finance, where the unspecified cuts, Mr Speaker, are not even allocated to an individual department. $330 million a year of a whim out there somewhere in the cloud because the government doesn't want people to know before the election where they're going to come from. It's paved with a $4 billion difference between the revenue estimates from the IRD and the Treasury. Guess whose numbers were higher? The Treasury's. Guess which numbers the government's working off? The higher one. But IRD doesn't believe the growth numbers in this budget. Doesn't believe them. And there's no reason why they should. These are rosy glow growth numbers when you strip away the Christchurch earthquake and the Rugby World Cup sugar rush. The sad truth is, at the end of the 4-year period, we're still left with growth of only 2.2%. That's below the previous long-term average of 2.5%. And even then, IRD doesn't believe the money's actually going to come in. That's why their numbers are $4 billion below those of the Crown's. This is also paved with a $650 million a year theft from the personal pockets of public servants, partly because their departments have been forced to pay their KiwiSaver contributions out of baseline, but it doesn't stop there. This budget raids the superannuation scheme for public servants as well.
That's right.
It's iniquitous, $650 million a year, and that's not even the fine print. Mr Speaker, this is paved also with the fudge that the $5 billion Canterbury Reconstruction Fund isn't going to be paid for by the Crown. It's going to be sucked off the public through these new Canterbury Reconstruction bonds. Much less secure, sir, than if the Crown was putting its balance sheet behind Canterbury's recovery. So the rhetoric is not matched by the reality. Yet another fudge, yet another 0 out of 10 for this budget. But most of all, and sadly, Mr Speaker, this budget is paved by the sacrifices of middle New Zealand families. The sacrifices of working Kiwis who are going to have their KiwiSaver slashed and their working for families abated more rapidly. And what does that mean in real people's language? It means $20 a week less for a family with 2 KiwiSavers, $10 a week less each because the member tax credit is cut in half. That's if they're doing 2%. Mr Speaker, the bill it changes the default up to 3%. Well, isn't that heroic of this government? They haven't even reversed their reversal. They've half reversed their reversal. They've half reversed the reversal they made last year when they took it from 4% to 2%. This year they've gone back up from 2 to 3. Wow, that's leadership. That's leadership. That's leadership. And who pays? The punter pays. The family pays. The employer tax credit's gone and they have to match the 3% contribution if that's required, and there's a problem with that because it creates an incentive for them to hire people not on the higher threshold and therefore opens up the potential for discrimination between employees. Mr. Speaker, on working for families, the numbers are even worse. Mr. Speaker, the abatement threshold and the abatement rate have both been changed, and the amount clawed back for a family of 4 on $80,000 by April 2012 is $12.33, rising to $24.77 in 2014, $37.42 in April 2016, and $50.30 a week for a family of 4 on $80,000. Two $40,000 incomes who are struggling to pay the bills and feed the kids and put school uniforms on them and take them to soccer or take them to rugby. Those families are getting penalised $50 a week by this budget from working for families alone, let alone the $20 a week they lose over KiwiSaver. $70 a week. And don't forget, last year they got hit with $30 a week per child in early childhood education. Iniquitous. When will these cuts stop? When will Middle New Zealand stop having to pay for the tax cuts that the Tories gave their rich mates? They've made choices. This is not about the earthquake. This is not about the New York stock market. This is about the choices they have made in this House about who gets what and who gets shafted. And we know who's got shafted again today. Middle New Zealand, and the Māori Party looks on. Well, this is what you paid for. I wonder if your people are happy, because most of them get working for families. They get working for families, and I hope they're in KiwiSaver, and they are $70 a week a family worse off, Tariana Turia. You have bought a $70 a week penalty to a Māori family of 4 living in Ngarawahia or New Plymouth or Te Taitonga. You have penalised them $70 a week, not you, the members' party, Mr. Speaker. Anybody on $80,000 a family with 2 adults and 2 children, anybody in that situation loses $50 a week out of KiwiSaver and out of working for families, $20 a week out of KiwiSaver. When will it stop? What would a good budget have looked like? What would this bill look like if it was a good bill? It would be a bill that contained changes that allowed us to earn more, work more, create more, export more, but it doesn't. There are 0 new ideas to help New Zealand export. 0 new ideas to grow productivity. 0 new ideas to create jobs. Not a shred of an economic development strategy, and not a shred of a real savings plan, Mr. Speaker, not a shred. KiwiSaver is shrunk, not grown. They said the savings gap was crucial. They said they would lead on savings policy. They said savings would be the centrepiece of the budget. And what is it? A $20 kick in the guts for a family of 2 KiwiSavers. That's what the centrepiece of their budget is, and working for families is worse. And all for nothing. All for nothing because it rests on a foundation that the Treasury knows in their heart of hearts is as flimsy as a house of cards, paved with broken promises. The promise not to sell assets and get a mandate, but they booked the money now before the election. The promise not to cut KiwiSaver, but they booked the money now, and we're passing the bill in urgency, even though it supposedly doesn't hit town till April next year. What kind of a mandate is that if we're passing the urgency 6 months before the election? That's absolute rubbish. That makes a mockery of democracy, and members opposite can't keep a straight face because they know that it's flim-flam. They are clowns, Mr. Speaker, clowns, and they don't deserve to be taken seriously by the New Zealand public. And there comes the member, smiling like a Cheshire cat, knowing that she's taken $20 a week out of KiwiSavers up in the East Cape, and she's taken $50 a week out of people working for families who are struggling to make ends meet.
Order.
Ruatoria will be Ruapuria after this bill goes through, because every person on Working for Families will be poorer as a result of this bill. This is a zero budget, zero ideas, zero leadership, zero compassion, zero chance of being re-elected.
I call the honourable